So let's continue on in the self-forgiveness list for fear. This the link to this video I will post on the left side of this video, and why I'm using this list is because the person who used this list was able to, in his account, go in and out the dimension and find out what's there. And so I want to see what it will what my reality is after doing this. Okay. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear nanotechnology. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear the effects and consequences of nanotechnology. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear pain. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear experiencing pain. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear being tortured to death. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear experiencing the pain of being tortured to death. I forgive myself that I haven't allowed myself to realize that the very fears I fear manifest as actual experiences, not only in my own world, but as all of humanity as one together. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear self-responsibility. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear sex. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear self-intimacy. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear not feeling anything. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear stopping my mind in the belief that if I do, I will become a zombie, instead of realizing I am already a zombie if I am off the mind. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear my mother and my mother because they apparently know more than I do. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear being fat. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear being thin. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear eating food that will apparently make me fat. I forgive myself that I haven't allowed myself to realize that which I fear I create. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear conflict. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear confrontation. I forgive myself that I have allowed myself to fear fighting. I forgive myself to have allowed myself as a parent to define fear as love. I forgive myself to have allowed myself to fear for my children's safety. Let's look at I forgive myself to have allowed myself as a parent to define fear as love. You know, sometimes I overhear parents say, "Oh, don't let your child walk without a harness because he might fall or she might fall," you know, when babies walk on their own. And of course that's fear, but then doing self-forgiveness for that, I suppose it just as is the fear and deletes it. Cool. Let's continue on.